What up, y'all? It's your boy, the MMA Cannibal. We just had UFC Fight Night Abu Dhabi. Umar Nurmagomedov facing Corey Sandhagen in the main event. Guys, if you watch my prediction video, you know what I said. Corey Sandhagen is one of my top 5 favorite fighters right now. As I said, there was a lot of emotional stakes for me in this fight, and as you can imagine, I'm pretty distraught right now from the way that fight went. The best way I could kind of describe it for y'all really is just Corey was scared. He didn't the first round. He was able to get some shots off pretty well, reverse the positions that Umar got him into decently well. Didn't really stuff any of the takedowns. Umar got the very first one he went for, but he was able to reverse out of positions well, turn and scramble, and it looked, gave you kind of some hope for the rest of the fight. But as the fight went on, he really you realized that everything he used to get out of the takedowns in the first round was everything he had to be able to get out of takedowns from Umar. And as the fight went on, he was just able to adapt to those better, to the point where it really ended up just making the whole grappling thing neutral, to where neither guy really got any super good success. Umar got a few shots here and there and a few sub attempts here and there, which I definitely expected, as you can imagine, because I took Umar by a submission. However, even though the grappling got neutralized, you may think, okay, Corey can then run away with it on the feet because he should be significantly better than Umar on the feet. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Umar is good on the feet. I don't think he's actually as good as Corey, but this goes back to me saying, Sandhagen was scared because he was clearly in fear of the takedown the entire fight. He fought very differently this fight because you can see he's just worried about it the whole time. He's not throwing anything particularly flashy or big. He kind of just stuck with jabs and moving side to side for the most part. I can't even really remember anything else he threw besides jabs, to be totally honest. I think there was a few body kicks here and there, but Umar was really just outstriking him left and right, mostly because Corey was just not throwing. At least how it felt like. I don't know what the numbers say, but Umar was very clearly outstriking him every round and was very clearly instigating every single grappling situation. And even though Corey was neutralizing it, like I said, Umar, in a 50-50 grappling situation like that, it comes down to the striking, and Corey was too scared to get anything going on the feet, and he kind of just let Umar take it. I'm honestly just so disappointed with this performance from Corey. The way he'd been talking about it in the build-up, wanting to crack the Nurmagomedov code and everything, it all just kind of crumbled under the weight of a 135-pound Russian. And props to Umar, his first main event, 5 rounds, his cardio looked good, his performance looked good. I'm not going to sit here and say that, he didn't deserve, obviously he deserved to win the fight. I think if you take away the grappling, it's still a pretty solidly close fight. I do think Corey would win in a pure striking match, but this isn't pure striking, this is MMA. And Umar is just so good at wrestling that Corey couldn't execute what he needed to execute, and that's really just what it boils down to in this one. You can hear it in my voice. Very upset to see my man Corey lose, but props to Umar. And I see a lot of people calling for the title shot. I don't really like that, just because he literally only has one ranked win. I get it's the number 2 guy. It's literally only one ranked win. He shouldn't have even been ranked to begin with. But Dana said he's next in line. O'Malley's talking about, he would love to fight him. So I think it's pretty clear that whoever wins at UFC 306 is going to be fighting Umar Nurmagomedov. Unless it's Merab, in which case they're probably going to rematch him and O'Malley. Just because, it's the UFC and Dana White is at the head. Co-main event, though, we had Shar Magomedov and Mikhailo Ksejcik. This was actually a really good scrap. It earned fight of the night, and I think I agree with that bonus. There were quite a few good scraps on this card, but this one definitely, I think, had the most blood and some of the best back and forth, really. Cal's performance definitely surprised me a lot, especially if you guys have been paying attention to how he'd been acting on social media and the build up to this fight. It did not inspire a lot of confidence, but he went out there kind of like a dog, put on a pretty good performance compared to what I thought he was going to do. He got a few takedowns here and there, landed some few good shots, a little bit of ground and pound, but overall, Shara was just way more damaging. His strikes were significantly more significant, I guess, and just more active. He was just better is another. It boils down to that a lot of the time, but yeah, he was just better. Mikal didn't have anything for him on the feet, really, and the visuals were not good the whole fight for him. Moving on down to our featured fight of the night, Deiveson Figueiredo versus Marlon Vera. I was very excited for this one. I thought this was going to be a very exciting fight, very back and forth, although it was a Chito Vera fight, so I guess that was my mistake for thinking that would happen. Honestly, a super close fight. Very slow paced and not particularly entertaining, but super close. A lot closer than I would have liked Deiveson to make it, honestly. Chito 100% won the second round, in my opinion, and that first round was, I would say the first round was Deiveson's clearest round, just because he had way more significant shots and he had a few takedowns. It definitely made that round clear for him. And the second round, the striking was very close, but Chito had outstruck him, and Deiveson had nothing else to really support him. No takedowns, no sub attempts, nothing like that. And then the third round, Chito was actually winning. Chito was landing more shots. He was outstriking him. It was like something insane to see. I couldn't believe it. And then Deiveson does something even more insane and gets the first knockdown on Chito Vera in the UFC. And that's like 24 fights straight of Chito not getting knocked down. I think that's if you include his amateur career, which actually, if you look here, that would be every single one of his fights probably. So yeah, that's incredible. Deiveson Figueiredo clearly still has power at bantamweight. If you guys doubted it before, there's no doubting it now. We saw what O'Malley did to him for 5 rounds straight and somehow didn't knock him down, but Deiveson does it. So that honestly might be the highlight of the card for me. Like, Deiveson getting that knockdown was crazy, and you just love to see him having success here at this weight class. You love to see Chito take an L. It is how it is. So yeah, even though the fight was pretty boring, that kind of made up for it, because it was like, holy crap, we just witnessed, like, minor history, but it's history, so that was awesome. Moving along, just retire. I don't this half retirement, everyone's online being like, oh, classic Tony, man. Don't encourage him. Oh, classic Tony, he half retired, that's why we love him. No, that's not why we love him. We loved him because he was putting on entertaining fights and blooding up his opponents and fighting very unorthodox. We weren't loving him because he was saying he was going to half retire when he's on an 8-fight losing streak. Hang it up. Oh my God, hang it up. Props to Michael Chiesa for being a gentleman and giving Tony the mic time even though he won. I will say that. Props to Chiesa for that. What a gentleman. But yeah, Tony, what the hell? Just retire. I don't even care. Literally just show up to the next event just so you can be played your little memorial video, and ride off into the sunset. Do not give this man another fight. I honestly don't even care if that's his final fight and that's how he retires. Michelle Watterson gets a whole goodbye video and Tony Ferguson does his little thing. Honestly, you want to talk about Tony being Tony? That's the most Tony Ferguson way for him to retire. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that fight. If you guys really thought there was going to be any other kind of opinion coming out of me. Moving on down though, speaking of coming out of me, sorry, that might be a little too much, but Mackenzie Dern and Lupita Godinez, this was a pretty solid scrap as well, actually. You guys are going to be hearing me say that a lot on this card, but I liked this fight a lot for a handful of reasons, but primarily because Mackenzie Dern's striking, actually, while it didn't look particularly great, I guess. I really liked the volume she was throwing out, how aggressive she was. Her accuracy was pretty solid too, landing quite a lot of her strikes right on Godinez's face. And you could tell that her grappling was significantly better than Lupita. And even if you don't think that, Lupita definitely thought that, because it was kind of a similar situation with the Corey Umar fight where she looked kind of tentative. You know, she wasn't throwing as much volume as I was expecting. When she did throw, she did land and hurt Mackenzie when she did, because I think Dern landed like twice as many strikes as her, and yet both of their faces looked the same by the end of the fight, which was pretty funny. But yeah, Lupita was definitely being very patient, taking her moments very well, shelling up quite a lot. It was clear that she was really trying to play this very defensively and didn't want to get over aggressive with Mackenzie and overextend herself and get caught on the ground with her, which showed to be a possible problem early on in the first round. So props to Godinez. I think it was a pretty good game plan. I honestly think if Mackenzie was less aggressive in her striking in this fight, Godinez probably would have won. It was still pretty close, all things considered, but I do definitely agree with the Mackenzie decision. And, good win for her. I mean, I know Godinez isn't exactly a highly ranked or super highly touted, prospect, but in terms of this division, this is a pretty solid win, and it's a nice bounce back for her after the Andrade and Lemos losses. Continuing on, Yoel Alvarez and Elvis Brenner. This was my holy banger of the card, and kind of didn't deliver. I mean, it sort of did. Came out wrong. This fight was very entertaining. One of the most entertaining fights on the card. If fight of the night didn't go to Shara, I think this would have been the next best one to pick. However, it wasn't quite the back and forth I was expecting. The first round was kind of a bit of a back and forth, but really, when you go back and look at like the numbers, Alvarez was just outclassing Elvis this whole fight. It felt like, I'm gonna move that. It felt like Elvis just didn't really know how to approach Alvarez the whole fight. He was having a lot of difficulty closing the distance. You could tell he wanted to like dirty box with him, but he just couldn't get past the reach. Alvarez super tall. He could see everything coming at him. Elvis was like so many feints to the point where I was like, dude, you're going to gas yourself out feinting this much. Just kind of moving side to side, moving forward. Like looked like his head was like on a Beyblade. Like just spinning around, moving back and forth and side to side over and over, waving his hands around in front of him. He kind of looks stupid at certain moments, just being like, hey, look at me, look over here, hey. And Alvarez, just a stone statue staring at him, did not react to a single thing. And it was honestly kind of funny to watch the way Elvis just like he was just so over the top in how much he was feinting at him. And Alvarez just didn't react to any of it, was very patient, basically just watched him like a sentinel and stalked him down, followed him very closely, kept him pinned against the cage, landed his long, rangy shots. I mean, he hit him with some really mean straights this whole fight, and eventually just ended up hitting him with one that was really hard, kind of dazed Brenner for a sec, caught him in a clinch, and threw what was about 100 knees in the clinch or so, probably, to finish that fight. Brenner's tough as hell, and I always look forward to an Elvis Brenner fight. Unfortunately, I can't ever say, like, if I'm being totally honest, I never saw him being ranked material even. He's kind of like Charles Oliveira, but he fights a lot like Charles Oliveira, but he just doesn't have the size to complement it. He doesn't quite have that strength to back it up. And obviously his technique is not quite as crisp either. So for all those reasons, he's just kind of, he's budget Charles Oliveira, and he's super fun to watch. I love seeing him in these fights, but I can't see him going past, if he does ever get ranked, I can't see him going past a 13 or 12 spot possibly. But yeah, as much as I like Elvis Brenner, I do think right around here is his limit. I do think Yoel Alvarez is probably the cap on his opponents. He could maybe, like, if Yoel Alvarez was closer to Elvis's size, I think he would have been able to possibly win this fight. But I mean, Alvarez is like, he's got that Jalen Turner build, which when you're that kind of tall and lanky, you are such an incredible finisher. You really put people on notice. It's scary. You're that size, you are a presence in the octagon, and I think people feel that, especially when you can hit with the power that Yoel Alvarez has, and you have the submission credentials that Alvarez has. You realize, oh, this dude, if I let him get a moment where he can finish me, he's going to finish me most likely. I mean, after this fight included, he's maintained his 100% finish rate. And yeah, get this man a ranked opponent, because I don't even care if he fights once a year. Every time he fights, it's a banger, and I love it. So would love to see more from Yoel Alvarez. Great fight. Azamat Murzakanov versus Alonzo Menifield. I predicted this perfectly. KO in the second round. Yeah, Azamat was just better than him the whole fight. It really seemed. Menifield was slow. He landed a few good shots here and there, but nothing that really caught your eye or made it look like Azamat's head snapped back. Azamat was jumping in and out, being explosive, landing good shots to the body. And by the second round, I mean, honestly, kind of watching the fight, it looked pretty close, like kind of visually, even though I knew Azamat was winning. It was like, Menifield could make a comeback kind of at any moment. And at one point in the second round, one of the commentators was making a comment saying Azamat looked like he was getting tired. And then about 10 seconds later, he gets a knockout over Menifield. So whether he was tired or not doesn't really matter. Azamat getting that win. I don't even know. I think Menifield was ranked below him, if I had to guess. I can't imagine Menifield was above him. And yeah, let's just get Azamat moving up those rankings. He's putting on solid performances. He literally just looks like a bowling ball in that cage, and I love it. Fernandez versus Yaya. Oh my god. I don't know if I've ever seen a faker looking fighter than Muhammad Yahya. You could have told me that they showed Muhammad Yahya like 3 UFC fights and then told him, all right, go out in that cage now. I'd believe you. I would believe you. This dude's stance, the way he was feinting, I guess you would call it, and testing range and throwing his hands out there, but not really like strikes or like distance management. He's just kind of like putting his arm out there to look like he's doing something. He looked like he had no idea, and he was just kind of like, well, this is what I saw him do on the video. But then he was like, when I say a fake fighter too, like he's not a real fighter. Like they threw him out there for just to be like, all right, go. And he's like, oh, what, me? And he's just so scared of taking real damage from Cal Fernandez, who immediately just, it was like 2 leg kicks and Yaya was done. You could tell after like the second or third leg kick, you were like, oh yeah, Muhammad's not going anywhere in this fight. And honestly, kind of a shame on Fernandez's performance too, because this dude played it incredibly safe and just like super patient. Did not take any risk until he finally got a leg kick on Yaya that just crumpled him to the ground, and then he finished him off with ground and pound, which was solid. But there was like a moment where like Fernandez is kind of just standing there in like a super wide stance with his arms just kind of moving around, kind of the way Elvis Brenner was doing, but like way more exaggerated, to the point where I'm like, bro, you're just sitting there trying to clown on the dude, but you're a no-name who can't even like finish this dude yet. Like, come on, bro. So, I don't know. At least he finished it in the first and got it out of there quickly. But yeah, Yaya, I mean, holy crap, dude. Pack it up. Like, how did you make it to the UFC, dude? Oh my god. We need to cut him, bro. He just makes it look bad. Anyways, moving on down. The Blob versus Don'Tale Mayes. They were so shiny by about the minute or 2 mark into the first round that the commentators started talking about how hot it is in Abu Dhabi and how humid it was, which to their credit is like 80% humidity, which is insane. Even in an AC'd house, you're not gonna fully escape that. But I don't think that was the whole reason why these guys were looking like oiled up seals after about 2 minutes. That being said, I got this one wrong. I thought Don'Tale's size and being slightly younger with some slightly better competition experience would get him somewhere. But in the end, this fight was really a 50-50. And honestly, I shouldn't have doubted Shamil's skills. there's a million of these blobs in this division. So obviously there's a reason why people talk about Gaziev as a bit more of a promising blob. Despite his age and everything, they still kind of, hype him up a bit. And credit to him, he won the fight. He basically just wet blanketed for 3 rounds straight, but it worked. He sat there, he used Big Mac guard, and he sat there and used Big Mac guard and just controlled Dante Almeida. He couldn't handle it. So good win for Gaziev. Let's see him, fight another blob and then get a ranking, probably, is my take. Going on down, you know what? Scrap what I said before. Guram versus Jordan Vucenic. This should have been fight of the night. This fight was insane. Jordan put on a hell of a performance in that first round. Obviously, the glazing is crazy, but I was so proud of him in that first round. That dude looked crazy on the short notice against a guy like Guram. He was piecing him up really well. He got a knockdown on him, which was insane. And I think there was a little bit of, if I remember correctly, there was a little bit of a grappling exchange right after the knockdown, and Jordan just completely outclassed him there too. Not outclassed, but beat him there too. And as far as the second round went, it was still pretty close. I think if Guram didn't get the cut on Jordan that he got in that second round plus a takedown, I think Jordan would have won that round, and that would have won him the fight too. Unfortunately, that's not how things go. Not a fairy tale. Like I said, I thought he was going to get his debut spoiled, and he really did, because he came out in that first round looking fantastic and had every reason to win that second round until Guram, got the cut. And then it was like, great. And then the third round came and Guram really just ran away with it. I don't know what happened. Maybe Jordan was just a little demoralized after the way the second round went. Maybe the short notice cardio was finally catching up to him. Maybe Guram really finally realized he needed this round to win the fight. Whatever it was, Guram put on a great performance in that third round, stole the fight. Got my pick right, but Jordan put on a hell of a good performance. He looked like a lightweight in there. I thought he was going to look small being on short notice and normally fighting at featherweight, but wow, this dude looked, just as big as Guram, basically. I see no reason why this guy couldn't continue at 155 if he wanted to, and I think at 145 he's going to be an absolute beast. I'm really excited to see what Vucenic can do in the UFC, and I'm looking forward to his next fight, whatever that may be. I'll be totally honest with y'all, I did not watch this fight. I'm not even going to say anything about it. I got my pick wrong, but look at the records and tell me that I'm stupid for having picked Victoria, and I can just ignore you. So yeah, I didn't even watch that fight. I don't even care. Jai Herbert, Rolando Bedoya. This fight was very close. Bedoya outstruck Herbert in the first round, but Herbert got a knockdown before anything else even really happened in the first round. Like, it was like 90 seconds in, and Herbert got a knockdown, and then the rest of the round happened. So even though Bedoya did end up outstriking Jai, that knockdown really carried him through that whole round. And the second round basically went exactly how the first round went, except minus the Herbert knockdown. So Bedoya ties it up in the second. And then the third round comes, and Jai Herbert just, I don't know, somebody put a carrot on a stick in front of him, and this dude goes and triples Bedoya's striking stats in the third round and gets 2 takedowns. Okay, dude, you win the fight. You won the third round. We get it. You wanted the W. Good for you. But yeah, solid performance from Jai. Got this one perfect as well. And yeah, Bedoya is down to 0-3 in the UFC. I don't know if they re-sign him. I don't know what his contract looks like. He might have another fight, and then he's up for, negotiations. We'll see. But looks like you don't need to be learning English anytime soon, man. You can just keep your Peruvian going on, because you're going back to the regionals. And finally, the fight that we had to open up the whole thing, we had Adrikas Dumas versus Dennis Talulin. The first round went about as terribly for Dumas as it could have. It immediately opened up with Talulin reversing a takedown attempt on Dumas, and even though Dumas immediately got back up and locked the hands around Dennis, he basically just held him against the fence for about 3 or 4 minutes, And the entire time that was happening, Dennis Tululin was just landing shots to the back of Cedricus Dumas's head. Mind you, I don't blame Dennis for landing those shots. He wasn't looking at him because of the way he had to turn his head to be able to reach his hand around. I blame Cedricus because he's very clearly feeling those shots land on his head as he's doing nothing but just holding on to Dennis. And he's got his head turned away from Dennis in an attempt to, I don't know, protect himself. He would have been better off taking those shots to the face than the back of the head. So possibly some brain damage for Dumas after that first round, some light CTE. But then the second and third basically went how you would have expected it to. Dumas finally starts to establish control with the wrestling, starts to get his takedowns, some moderate striking success overall. A much closer fight than I kind of expected it to be. But, I mean, good for Dennis. You know, I think he came out and was like, you know, I'm old and whatever. What do I got to lose with my terrible record? So, dude's almost 11-11. That is crazy. I vote we give him one more fight in the UFC so we can hit that 11-11 mark. And then we cut him. But other than that, thank you guys for watching my recap video. What do you guys think of the event? What do you think of the fights? What was your favorite fight on the card? And thank you for watching. Stay violent.